property that we're presently on is the Rhodes Wetland Reserve Easement. This property is located in the middle Rio Grande, and so the river is just off to our right here, about 100 yards, the Rio Grande River.
My father, Virgil Rhodes, bought this property in the early 1980s, and for approximately 25 years, the property was used for farming and cattle grazing. In 2005, my father passed away. My sisters and I inherited the property, and I became the manager of the property at that time.
This property has no river levee on it, so it allows the river to function and provide some floodplain protection. Another significant part of this property is that we have protected wildlife species that inhabit this riparian zone.
My father absolutely loved the land, but he didn't understand conservation easements, and neither did I. But after he passed away, I came to the property with a couple of people from the state of New Mexico who were interested in purchasing the property. And when we came onto the property, there was a large lake in the middle of the property. And I had what can best be described as an epiphany. I just suddenly realized how valuable the property is to the ecosystem of the middle Rio Grande. And so I backed away from selling the property and told my sisters, we need to rethink what we're doing here.
This property was actually being discussed for enrollment into NRCS Wetland Reserve Program in the mid-2000s, although restoration efforts on this property had already begun with other partners. And it was shortly thereafter that because of those efforts earlier to restore and eradicate the salt cedar, we had a wildfire erupt through this river bottom here, which changed the landscape. And then at that point, the landowners wanted to put it into our Wetland Reserve Program.
So I began in 2007 to work with the folks from NRCS to explore the option of putting an easement on the property. What appealed to my sisters and I the most about the WRP easement was the fact that we would be able to continue ownership of the property. We would be able to make sure that the property was preserved and conserved in perpetuity with an in perpetuity easement. And we would be able to make sure that the property would never be open to commercial development.
20 feet.
I'm Dusty Glidewell. I'm a soil conservationist in the Socorro, New Mexico field office. We're checking off a fence today as part of the WRE program to make sure it meets specifications. We're trying to make sure that grazing is excluded so we can continue with our restoration projects. And we're making sure it's wildlife friendly. We want to make sure that the top wire is 12 inches so the deer can jump through. And then we want to make sure the bottom wire is at least 16 inches from the ground. Looks good, so then they can go underneath the fence.
So in about 18 years or so, the property has now transitioned into some of what we see today here. We're controlling exotic plants primarily, but we're also planting and reestablishing native trees and shrubs as well. We've been able to convert this once farm into a wetland.
NRCS has been extremely beneficial in terms of bringing additional resources, not only financial resources, but time and effort and collaborations with other conservation organizations to help leverage the dollars that NRCS has put into the property. We have hopefully restored habitat for the southwest willow flycatcher, for the yellow-billed cuckoo, and the Rio Grande silvery minnow. So without NRCS as the anchor in our conservation efforts, we would not have been able to attract the kinds of resources needed for a property of this magnitude. They've been invaluable to me.
We're just trying to do what we can to protect the last remaining wetlands is what's going on. And so climate change may, ensue successional change, vegetation change on these landscapes. We just don't know all those things. But yet, we know that we can protect what we do have. And so I think it's important that we continue to do that.